Did you know that some tornadoes can have winds faster than a race car? The tornado that hit Greenfield, Iowa on the afternoon of May 21st, 2024, had wind speeds that reached over 300 miles per hour according to radar. That's faster than most things on the road or in the air, but the tornado didn't just break records, it broke hearts, homes, and a whole community. The day started like any other spring day in Iowa, but the weather experts already knew trouble was coming. That morning, the Storm Prediction Center gave the area a moderate risk for severe weather, especially tornadoes. It wasn't just Greenfield that was in danger. The entire region, including parts of Missouri, Wisconsin, Illinois, and Minnesota, was under watch. A mix of warm, moist air from the south met with cooler, dry air, and by afternoon, storms had already started forming. The setup was perfect for something dangerous to form, and unfortunately, it did. At around 2:57 p.m., the tornado touched down in rural Page County, Iowa. At first, it didn't look like much, just some branches ripped from trees and minor damage to a farm building. But this was only the beginning. As it moved northeast, it passed through parts of Taylor and Adams counties, growing stronger with each mile. It crossed over fields, tore through power poles, and slammed into farm buildings. Storm chasers captured the tornado on video, showing a huge funnel cloud spinning with a wide debris field below. That was the first real clue that this was going to be a serious storm. The tornado became stronger quickly. As it passed through the countryside near Nottoway and crossed US Route 34 north of Brooks, it was already starting to look like the monster it would become. Cars on the highway were in danger, and sadly, this is where one person lost their life. A 41-year-old woman named Monica Irma Zamarron was caught in the tornado's path and thrown from her car. She didn't survive. Just after that, the tornado hit with EF2 and then EF3 strength. Those are ratings based on how much damage a tornado causes. In this case, entire homes were being torn apart. One house lost its walls and slid off its foundation, and all the buildings nearby were completely destroyed. The tornado's width expanded too, stretching over 1,300 yards across, more than 3/4 of a mile. It even showed what's called suction vortices, which are smaller, fast-spinning funnels inside the main tornado. These are what caused the most intense destruction in some areas. This was the tornado's buildup. Greenfield was next in its path, and no one could have imagined just how hard it was going to hit. By the time the tornado reached Greenfield, the damage was already widespread, but what awaited the small town was nothing short of catastrophic. As it approached from the southwest, there was no mistaking the power of this storm. In the distance, residents could see the funnel cloud descending from the sky, a dark, swirling mass of destruction on the horizon. At approximately 3:35 p.m., the tornado touched down just west of Greenfield. With winds now exceeding 200 miles per hour, it was an EF4 tornado, a classification rarely seen in populated areas. The first major hit was on the western outskirts of town, where the twister tore through residential neighborhoods. Homes, businesses, and schools in its path were completely flattened. Roofs were ripped off, windows shattered, and debris was sent flying through the air like projectiles. In some places, foundations were all that remained of what had once been family homes. The impact of the tornado was immediate and overwhelming. The sounds of the storm were deafening. Winds howling, objects slamming against each other, and the terrifying roar of the funnel cloud itself. It was as if the very ground beneath Greenfield had been picked up and tossed aside. Residents who had not yet taken shelter were caught off guard. Many rushed to their basements or any nearby safe location, hoping to ride out the storm. Those who had not made it to safety were forced to take cover wherever they could, some hiding under staircases or in bathrooms, bracing for the worst. Greenfield's school system took a direct hit. Greenfield High School, a local landmark, suffered severe damage. The roof was torn off, windows were shattered, and classrooms were left in ruins. Despite the destruction, the school's basement remained one of the safest places in town. Emergency responders and school staff worked quickly to move students to shelter, ensuring that no lives were lost in the building. It was a relief for families who were worried about the safety of their children, but the devastation outside was still staggering. As the tornado roared on, it didn't let up. The storm continued its path of destruction, moving through residential areas and beyond. The tornado ripped apart buildings on both sides of Greenfield's main street, leaving a path of debris stretching for miles. Businesses, homes, and farms that had been in the area for generations were now nothing more than piles of rubble. The sheer scale of the damage was hard to comprehend. Entire neighborhoods had been wiped out in a matter of minutes, the emotional toll on the residents of Greenfield was impossible to ignore. As the skies began to clear and the storm passed, the true extent of the damage became clear. People wandered through what was left of their homes, unable to believe the destruction they were seeing. Some searched for loved ones, while others struggled to salvage what little they could from the wreckage. For many, it was a day that would change their lives forever. After the tornado passed, Greenfield was left in a state of shock. The town, once a peaceful and quiet place, now resembled a war zone. Emergency services quickly moved in, working around the clock to assist those in need. Ambulances, fire trucks, and police cars filled the streets, with first responders tirelessly searching for survivors and assessing the damage. Their efforts were critical in the aftermath, as many people were trapped in the debris waiting for rescue. The storm had taken its toll on the community in ways that went beyond the physical destruction. In the days that followed, volunteers from nearby towns began to pour into Greenfield. Eager to help with the cleanup efforts, local churches, schools, and businesses turned into temporary shelters for displaced families, offering food, water, and comfort in a time of crisis. The spirit of unity was evident as people came together to rebuild their shattered town. The Greenfield community was determined not to let the tornado define them, though the road to recovery would be long and difficult. One of the first tasks was to restore power. The tornado had knocked out power lines, leaving much of the town in darkness. Crews worked tirelessly, often in dangerous conditions, to get electricity back up and running. Meanwhile, communication lines were also down, making it harder for loved ones to check in on one another. People had to rely on word of mouth and face-to-face communication to find out what had happened to those who lived outside the hardest hit areas. By May 4th, 2 days after the tornado hit, the National Weather Service conducted a thorough assessment of the damage. Their findings confirmed that Greenfield had experienced an EF4 tornado, with winds estimated to have reached over 200 miles per hour. This level of destruction was rare, and the damage was not just limited to homes and businesses. Roads were torn apart, trees were uprooted, and vehicles were tossed aside like toys. The town was left without much of its infrastructure, and it would take months, if not years, for Greenfield to fully recover. In the immediate aftermath, many residents were left wondering what would come next. They had lost so much in such a short period of time, and the emotional scars would linger long after the physical rebuilding was complete. Some families were displaced entirely, their homes beyond repair. For others, the task of starting over in the face of such overwhelming loss seemed almost impossible. Still, the sense of community was a source of strength. Local and national organizations raised millions of dollars in donations to support those affected by the disaster. Greenfield wasn't alone in its recovery efforts, and with help from across the country, the town began to slowly pick up the pieces. Even as the cleanup continued, many residents began to reflect on the experience. The tornado had changed their perspective on life. It had shown them the fragility of existence and the importance of community. Despite the pain and loss, there was also a deep sense of gratitude for the lives that were saved, for the support that poured in from near and far, and for the resilience of the people of Greenfield. As the months passed, the town would begin to rebuild, but it would never forget the events of May 2nd, one of the darkest days in its history. As the months went by, the people of Greenfield focused on rebuilding their lives and their town. The emotional toll of the tornado was still fresh in many minds, but the resilience of the community shone through. While the process of recovery was far from easy, there was a growing sense of hope as Greenfield began to heal. In the wake of the disaster, the town received significant support from local government agencies, volunteers, and organizations. These efforts were crucial in getting Greenfield back on its feet. Many businesses that had been destroyed in the tornado were able to reopen thanks to relief funds and grants. Homeowners, with the help of insurance companies and financial assistance, worked to rebuild their houses. The support was overwhelming, and it helped to provide some sense of normalcy in a place that had been turned upside down. Throughout the summer of 2024, the cleanup continued and the debris from the storm was cleared. Crews worked tirelessly to restore the town's infrastructure, from repairing roads to rebuilding bridges. The power grid was gradually restored, and by midsummer, Greenfield's residents were able to return to their homes, many of which had been extensively repaired or rebuilt. Schools were also reopened, and children returned to their classrooms, though it took time for the community to fully regain its footing. However, there were some lasting effects. The mental health impact of the tornado was significant. Many residents still struggled with the trauma, as the terrifying event had left deep emotional scars. The town's leaders, local counselors, and support groups worked together to offer resources for those in need. Therapy sessions and group counseling were made available to anyone who sought help, and the importance of mental health awareness became a central part of the recovery process. For some, it would take years to fully come to terms with what they had experienced, but Greenfield was dedicated to helping its residents heal, emotionally as well as physically. And by the end of the year, Greenfield had made incredible progress, but the town would never be the same. The tornado had changed the landscape, both literally and figuratively. The memories of that fateful day would stay with the residents forever, but so would the lessons learned. People had come together, helped one another, and demonstrated the power of community in the face of unimaginable loss. The Greenfield Tornado of May 2nd, 2024 was a devastating event, but it was also one that showcased the strength and resilience of a small town. Though the damage was extensive, the town was able to recover because of the unwavering support from its residents and the broader community. As time passed, Greenfield continued to rebuild, and it remained a symbol of hope for those who witnessed its recovery. The story of the Greenfield Tornado is not just one of destruction, but one of survival, unity, and the determination to rebuild, no matter the odds.